Phillips. So hello everyone. This is Attorney Robyn McCoy, new president of Black Women Lawyers in Michigan. Welcome on this Sunday. This is September 19th, and we have with us the wonderful attorney Tonya Phillips. She's an attorney and an advocate for equitable and exclusive public policy. She currently as Community Partnerships and Development Director for the Sugar Law Center for Economic and Social Justice in Detroit. In this role, she develops relationships and attracts funding to support the work of the Sugar Law Center. She also negotiates community benefits agreements, CBA, on behalf of community groups, and promotes the expanded and intersectional use of CBAs as an equitable developmental tool. She's won a lot of awards. She's a U of M alum. Shout out to U of M. I went to U of M too. It over to her. You see her bio, but I want to give her enough time to speak. We're going to have her speak, and then we'll do a Q&A. And I think with everything happening right now with the lifting on the eviction moratorium, and we've had issues. I'm in Washtenaw County right now, and we've had some issues with tenants being mistreated and things like that. So just apropos, this is the right time to have time and talk about what she does and enlighten us. And she is a sister in the law, so it's definitely, we support our members coming up and sharing the wisdom and the Black Girl Magic. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Tonya Phillips.
Thank you so much, Robyn, for that kind introduction. Can everyone hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Just checking. I'm on the go today. So I was coming from another event here at the Marriott Nips and Lanny, and I just found a little corner to tuck in here on my Wi-Fi. But it is so good to be here today. Thank you so much, Sisters in the Law. Congrats to the new e-board. Congrats to all the women winning all these awards and just showing out. It is a pleasure to be here at any time. So thank you for allowing me to just share some of the information regarding this eviction crisis right now and how we as Black women lawyers can get more involved. I believe it's a time of it's a pivotal time. It's a time of crisis, and it's a time of opportunity. So I'll share some of the developments that are going on locally in Detroit, statewide, some of the trends or recommended policies that we're seeing from the national scene and across the country. And of course, just take questions. So at any time, especially if I'm fading out or anything, please just let me know. So where to dive in? Of course, we know that the CDC moratorium ended, unfortunately, on August 26th, and that eroded the national safety net and kind of consistency and application for tenant protections that was present across the country. But there's still, various frameworks here in Michigan, at the state level and at the local level. I'm going to pop a lot of kind of links in the chat here too. So make sure you save the chat at the end of the presentation. So in terms of the basics, hitting the high points here, at least in Detroit, there's a centralized marketing effort to get information to individuals facing eviction in Detroit, Highland, and Hamtramck. And that is the Detroit Eviction Protection Helpline. So if you have clients, or many of us are just involved in community endeavors all over the place, then you want to certainly get this information to individuals in the community. And I'm going to put that first link right here in the chat, Detroit Eviction Protection Hotline. And that gives individuals the basic rundown for what they're available to receive, what they're eligible to receive. This is federal money that's also combined with state funds and a little pot of local funds. And tenants are eligible to receive 12 to 15 months of rent. There's not a cap on the amount of rent, which is pretty good, depending on their eligibility. Pretty much the tenant has to have a household income of 80% AMI. In the Detroit area, unfortunately, because of the high rate of poverty, that includes almost everybody. So we're not seeing many issues with eligibility in Detroit. The SARA program can also assist tenants and residents with utilities. So you can apply for back rent, you can apply for utilities, and you can also apply for internet assistance, right? Because in this age of COVID, where we're all on Zoom, access to technology is pivotal. So you can inform clients and community members that they can get internet assistance with SARA funds as well. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to be in active litigation to apply for rental assistance. They have state rental agencies, they're called HARAs, all over Michigan. And to start the process, regardless of where you are, where you live, in Detroit, we have our own kind of marketing effort, but the statewide portal, you can go to this link. And depending on what city or county you're in, just go there, pull up the information, and you'll be able to help clients and community members get started. And right now, without any federal moratorium or a state moratorium, really it's the SARA application that's the glue, and keeping tenants and residents in their home right now, that's the glue that's holding it all together. So it's so important to encourage clients and community members to apply to get in the queue, because if you're at least in the queue, then that provides the court a greater opportunity to stay the traditional time frame for evictions if an application is pending. Applications, it's a lot of variation in terms of how the time frame for applications being approved. Some are approved quicker than others, but to set a decent expectation, then we'd probably say 6 to 8 weeks before money hits, so to speak. And there's a lot of variation in that between counties and between cities. But the key to advising clients and community members is apply, at least just get in the queue. Other things about SARA, it's a joint application. So landlords and tenants need to apply together. And the application process, asks for various documents such as your lease, monthly rental payments, rental history for landlords, utility bills, and the agencies calculate an estimated payment amount. Once that's done, then the parties, hopefully, knock on wood, will negotiate a conditional dismissal, and the case would be dismissed, assuming that the money comes through and flows as it should. But again, the key is have the clients get in the portal, start the process. That is their best protection right now. It's a joint process. There is an exception if landlords just are not being responsive at all, then a tenant can apply on their own if there's no response within 14 days from the landlord. It gets a little murkier if there is a response and the response is no, I don't want to do that. Then as advocates, we're going to have to work a little harder to make it a win-win situation, so to speak. So that's kind of the broad overview of what's going on, but I'll narrow in a little bit more in terms of what's going on at 36th District Court. I guess before I bounce there, I should mention, at least statewide, there is an administrative order that went out from the Michigan Supreme Court. That's pretty good. And this does provide consistency between different counties and different district courts across the state. So with this administrative order, this is what should happen in courtrooms across the state anyway. The presiding judge should inform anyone that's facing a matter for non-payment of rent that they do have a right to counsel. And then they'll have the opportunity to connect with legal aid agencies. Some legal aid agencies are in the virtual courtrooms every day, some are not. The capacity varies across the state as well. But defendants are supposed to be informed about that. At that first hearing, This is pretty good. A pretrial is supposed to be set, and that gives the defendant enough time to apply for the SARA funds, to apply for emergency assistance from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, or any other aid program that they are eligible for. So that pretrial is supposed to be set. No other hearings are supposed to take place for at least 7 days. Detroit, that could run a little longer, which is good. Maybe a month or so before you're coming back. But the purpose is really to give applicants and litigants time to apply, time to get the money, to get the aid, to stop the eviction. So it's not an official moratorium, but it's I guess it's a pause of sorts in the proceeding. And if an application is in process, then the Supreme Court has issued guidance that the eviction should not go forward. And 36th district, I am glad to see it seems like the judges are being more, are pretty much following that line of guidance. In other courts it varies. Sometimes you have to know in order to defend yourself. But in 36th district court, the judges have been pretty good about allowing the time for the applications to go forward. So again, the glue is apply, apply, apply. One thing that is not as exciting is that this money only applies to tenants. So individuals who are in a bind, if they have a land contract, or if they're a homeowner and they're behind on their mortgage payments, right now it's really not as many resources to assist them, unfortunately. I will put a link in the chat of one to watch. I do understand that money is coming. MISTA does anticipate additional federal funds being released, and they're getting a program together to be able to help homeowners and land contract holders get that assistance as well. And this is especially problematic in Detroit, where you see all kind of landlord rental weird land contract scams as a result of the redlining that we see a lot in our communities. But keep kind of refreshing your page and checking that link to see when those funds are coming down the pipe. We've heard they should be released and available soon, but keep checking. So I encourage people that help is on the way. Keep those cases alive as long as you can until that program kind of gets together. Other things about need to knows, in most counties in the state and courts, the money goes to the landlord, kind of straightforward. In Detroit, there's two other little variations that you should be aware of in terms of negotiating SARA funds, and that's kind of the 80-20 rule and the 50-50 rule. So in addition to rental assistance, the leadership in Detroit is also looking at addressing issues of blight and requiring the landlord to have a certificate of compliance to receive 100% of the SARA funds. So the application can be put in, 80% will be released to the landlord, and 20% is held in escrow until that certificate of compliance can be obtained. Now, sometimes that takes a while. So an interesting conversation could be, okay, we'll come back around and get the other 20%, or realizing it's going to take a little while to get that certificate of compliance. Just settle for the 80, move on, and have a great day. Now the 50-50, this is when the property itself is not in habitable condition. So that means we had a lot of instances of flooding recently. If your utilities aren't working, if there are dangerous conditions, then the landlord is only eligible to receive that initial 50% upfront. Now, it's good to have these conversations in the screening process. One, because some tenants don't know about SARA, they don't understand it, as with most things. Is you need your documentation, you need valid documentation. It's a little clunky, but there are counselors to help people get that information together. But people don't know what they don't know, and sometimes they don't know about 80-20, 50-50, or what that means. You know, they want to know, how can I stay in my house? And may not necessarily get into that conversation about whether your home is habitable. So those are some things to ask. Those are some things that just come out in conversation, but those are little kinks or quirks to be aware of in Detroit's program. Some people like it and say, hey, you know, we need to do something about these housing conditions. Others don't, say it's kind of making the distribution of our aid go slower, which means that's, you know, people are still in the eviction queue until this process is complete. So it's various opinions on how that works, you know, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, but it's out there and it's something to be aware of. Now, in terms of how attorneys can get involved, there are a lot of opportunities at this time. And I had the pleasure of presenting before on positions that were available with Michigan Legal Services and the United Community Housing Coalition. As Angela said, positions at all the legal service agencies are hiring, essentially, because it's certainly great. There's assistance available at this time, but as with most appropriations, you know, this is not guaranteed to stay forever. You know, actually, we'll see what is to remain of unspent funds that were supposed to be spent by the end of this month, you know, but it's difficult in moving those funds forward. Combination of outreach, knowledge, paperwork, processing, you know, all the money is not spent. So the money's there, all has not been spent. And we'll see, you know, how much carries over. But for right now, there are lots of positions open. I'd encourage attorneys to apply. Of course, I might have a little bias because I work with Michigan Legal Services as a public policy advisor, but all of the legal agencies need our help desperately. And I know from working with Michigan Legal Services and the United Community Housing Coalition that they have opportunities to do long-term contracts with attorneys. So, you know, many of us have, you know, our own practices and thriving businesses and, you know, are not necessarily looking to become a full-time legal services attorney. But if you're interested in, you know, part-time work, about 20 hours is what Michigan Legal Services and the United Community Housing Coalition looks for, then you can negotiate an independent contractor agreement with our agencies in Detroit. And all hands on deck, everyone is welcome and needed. And you would have access to working with paralegals, you work with a great team, you receive amazing training. So you know, my bias and preference is certainly to work with these agencies, you know, who've been doing this work for over 40 years, between MLS, UCHC. I think Lakeshore has been around about 50 years. So it's a good team. You have a lot of support. And if you're interested, have other questions, please call me, email me. Let me put my email in the chat. And there we go. So I don't know if is the chat available online? Anyway, I'm not sure with the screen share if that can be seen or not, but my email's there, and Robyn and Rita know how to reach me. I lost you for a minute there, Robyn. Can everybody still hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So that's one way to get involved, you know, taking cases on a regular schedule, either full-time or part-time, contractual or an attorney with full benefits. Another way is to look at regular pro bono service, and Lakeshore offers a fabulous pro bono program. And, you know, you might not be able to do it every day. Maybe it could take 1 or 2 cases a month, but you can get involved with Lakeshore's pro bono program, which is really good. In terms of the City of Detroit Eviction Prevention Program, Sister Counsel Angela began to talk about that. So I'm going to put those links in the chat as well and hit a couple of highlights about that program. So here is the kind of informational overview about the program. And then if you want to go straight to the application to apply, I'm going to put that here as well. So essentially what the city of Detroit is doing now, they have allocated about $1 million to supplement the efforts of the legal aid agencies because there simply is not enough capacity. I'm going to kind of tie this in with systemic solutions, but it's difficult to scale from taking roughly about 5% of cases before the pandemic and then go to 100. So that is difficult to scale an organization that fast. I don't know of any group in the country that's been able to do it. So organizations and cities that do provide a full right to counsel usually are able to grow to that position in 3 to 5 years. So in the interim, the city has created kind of this GAP program, and compensation is provided per case. So essentially, you apply to the program, you receive training from one of the legal aid agencies, kind of an expedited, you're going to get your hands dirty real quick training, but you get the basics from Michigan Legal Services, United Community Housing Coalition, Lakeshore Legal Aid. And then cases will be referred to the private attorneys that do not have another kind of contractual relationship with the legal aid agencies. The initial rollout has been slow. It's about 5 attorneys, and there's been an increase or a bump in the payment rate, I think, in order to attract more attorneys. So essentially, they are looking at $350 for each conditional dismissal. So if you get your 100% SARA application in, that's all good. That's $350. If you have a more particularly complicated case, that's $450. There are 2 other breakouts that I'm still trying to distinguish because it's all kind of hot off the presses, but most of it you can think of as $350 for a case that's not so complicated, $450 for a case that is more complicated. So that's hot off the presses. You can apply for that. At the end of the expiration of these funds, it's going to be a little over 2,000 cases, with that math. That people will be able to receive additional legal service. So that's available as well. Again, I am a little biased. I kind of like, come on with Michigan Legal, come on with the legal aid agencies and develop a long-term relationship. But these are per cases. And the model is similar to House Counsel a little bit in that respect. And attorneys, after they complete cases, they're able to invoice the city. So that is another feature that's very unique to Detroit in order to serve more people in need of assistance. And then in terms of policy and advocacy work, this is where I live most of the time, and I love it because I started doing housing cases in 2009 and have seen little incremental changes a little bit. It wasn't as bad as it used to be. It's not as bad as it used to be. And I'm thankful for that. But we're still at this point where I think as a society and a community, we can decide if we want to, kind of look at this period as a stopgap period, or do we want to take these monies, that are being invested and entrusted into our community and work on systemic reforms that will permanently reduce evictions in our communities, because it has been hurting Detroit and our families and our women for so long. And most of us on this call know, or if you've been to district court, especially in Detroit, most of the people facing eviction are Black women and elders, Black women with children and elders, the most vulnerable members of our community with no help. So I am thankful for the emergency aid, but I know it's coming to an end. So, a lot of what I like to do is advocate for what do we do beyond, how do we move out of just living and being accepting crisis, as normal. So some efforts that are going on are a move to create a right to counsel in the city of Detroit. And that would be similar to the criminal side of things, where if you can't afford an attorney, then an attorney will be provided for you. I'm very thankful for the Supreme Court guidance that says the judges have to tell individuals facing eviction they have a right to an attorney, but that is still very much, that right is dependent on our capacity as legal service agencies. So the question in right to counsel movements are, pushing and advocating for there to be a permanent stream of funding to be able to provide legal representation for families that are faced with eviction on a permanent basis. And cities that have implemented it have had really great results. New York was the first one to kick it off. And they've studied this after 5 years, and 86% of tenants who had legal representation were ultimately able to stay in their homes. And San Francisco, they have good numbers too. 67% of tenants with legal representation were able to stay in their homes. And eviction filings are down 10% in San Francisco. They're down like 30% in New York. So cities all across the country are moving in this direction. And we want Detroit to do that too. So I'm heading up a coalition of organizations. It includes all of our legal service agencies. ACLU of Michigan is involved, National Lawyers Guild is involved, a lot of community organizations. So maybe I'll write my letter to ask for our wonderful sister in the law group here to be supportive of that as well. But those are some of the things in terms of how do we look at systemic work to get this down. And just want to kind of pop a link in the chat you can look at in your spare time. But this is a petition actually to enact a right to counsel ordinance in Detroit. It's not a legal petition. It's a change.org petition. But that is circulating right now. With many of the groups supporting the Detroit right to counsel. And in terms of policy and advocacy, you can certainly reach out to me with that. Other groups that are involved, National Lawyers Guild is pretty involved in that. Detroit Eviction Defense is involved in that, and all of the legal aid agencies. So there's just so many roles to play, kind of winding it down here and watching the time. You can be an attorney full-time, you can provide representation part-time, kind of on a consistent hourly basis. You can pop in and just do cases when you can, or you can do some, more policy advocacy work and lend your name and your voice to just have people remember and think beyond September 2021. Where do we want to be in September 2022? Do we want to be in the same spot? No. So what do we need to do differently as a society and as a community? So those are some of the things that I've been working on. So essentially right now, Sarah for tenants, Sarah is the best thing going. So apply, encourage people to apply and, press past challenging paperwork, just get their application in, because if they can get their foot in the door, most of the judges are working with them with application in the door and legal representation to explain that, that everything is in order and the process is going forth. So with that, I guess I'll conclude my remarks and I leave room for questions.
Well, thank you, Tonya. That was wonderful. That was a really good presentation. Do we have any questions from the audience, or does anybody want to put any questions in the chat? I see Angela has her hand raised.
One question, Tonya. You mentioned that there is a provision where in the SARA Act where tenants can apply for those funds alone if they're not getting cooperation from the landlords. Is there any parallel provision for landlords where they?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I've not seen it that way.
Okay. That's all.
Yes, I have
one other thing. Just for the benefit of everyone who's on here who may not know, can you explain where they can, what AMI is and where they can find that?
Sure. Area mean income, and where you can find it. Let me get that link for you.
What was the name again?
AMI?
For the full name?
And basically what that is.
Area mean income.
Area. Okay.
So here's one link. One cool thing when you do your cases, your HARA rep will pretty much do it for you, but you can go on HUD's website and quickly pull it up yourself. And, you know, I said the good, I won't even say it's good, but a lot of times just the facts in Detroit is that most people will qualify. That's just an unfortunate fact. Certainly in areas that, you know, have greater wealth, and you'll want to check that to make sure that people, you know, understand that they meet the eligibility requirements.
So for attorneys that may be interested in joining or applying and hopefully joining potentially the list to represent clients and landlord tenant cases, can you just give like an average in terms of how many cases, like how many hearings would they attend the actual first hearing, and then would, you know, what if it goes to trial? How much would that kind of incorporate the full amount that they would receive per case?
Yeah, so with the city's new program, you know, that is a work in progress. You know, I can't really speak to that. This is so new and everybody's really trying to figure it out, so to speak. So I wish I could, but not really. It's a little bit of building the plane while you fly. And, you know, the legal aid agencies are also thinking about, okay, well, which cases are we taking? Which ones are we referring? So I can't exactly put a pin on it right now. Might have to come back, you know, as the program kind of rolls out over the next month or two and see how it's shaking out to give a better answer in terms of working with the city program. In terms of MLS and UCHC, I said it depends. It depends on what you're doing. You know, if you're going on a contractual basis, you could be one of the courtroom attorneys that go in. I mean, most of those agreements are hours, and I mean, you'll see a lot of cases and help a lot of people at district court. Or you could, you know, be assigned to some of the more complex cases, and you might only get 2 or 3 if you're doing the ones at Wayne Circuit Court, depending on how that shakes out. So a lot of flexibility with MLS and UCHC. I'm sure Lakeshore is probably similar. And with the city program, it's early right now, but I'll be happy to come back and share, you know, in another month or two, how it's going.
Yeah, we certainly would appreciate updates. Do we have any other questions from folks in the audience?
Yes, I have another question. Are you, Tonya, are you, Sister Tonya, excuse me, Sister Tonya.
Yeah.
Are you coming across any clients who receive assisted housing, like on the project-based voucher or housing choice voucher programs that need assistance, who are behind in their rent? And are they that's the first question.
Yeah, we do receive a lot of subsidized housing clients.
And are you referring them back to their caseworkers, to their housing choice specialists? To their housing choice specialists, because they under HUD, because if they've lost income, or if they've lost income, or they're behind in their rent somehow or other, there might be for most part they should get an adjustment for income. And because of the pandemic, they are actually being a little more relaxed, I know, with our agency, in terms of going at least back to March of 2020 and assisting them with that, with those avenues. Public housing side, we're actually, and I don't know what's going on, and I don't know why people aren't taking advantage of it. The staff is working extremely hard to get people to come in and get those adjustments, and if need be, tap into those funds, as well as they may even have some balance prior to March 2020, and they can work out repayment agreements. And I think the housing specialists are trying to work something out with the landlords too, if they do that. So that might take away some of the rush to court. But I just don't understand what's transpiring in terms of why we're not taking advantage of the program.
Yeah. So I guess that's a lot there. So in short, no, we usually don't go back to HUD. We usually work with, the management company to work it out in court. That doesn't mean it couldn't be done that way, but I guess it's just hasn't been my experience. We try and work it out with court and, work it out where the tenant doesn't lose their housing voucher. So that's been my experience, but that's an interesting question though. And I think if we had more resources, we could do more of that pre-work and trying to keep it out of court in the first place. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm in their way now.
Okay.
Okay, I see we do have two quick questions. I see Judge Thomas and then Linda McGee
Okay.
have questions.
Well, they're being nice to me and let me sit here. Okay.
My question
Mhm.
centers around when attorneys are given individual cases and they're paid, as you said, $350, $450, what have you. Is there any discussion about giving more than one case at a time? So that it's been a while since I practiced, but $350 doesn't sound like a lot to me.
Mhm.
But if you are given, say, 5 cases, then maybe in bulk,
Mhm.
it sounds like, okay, the economics makes more sense. Is anyone having that dialogue in terms of compensation and how to look at it in that regard?
Well, people are talking about it, but in terms of it being settled, I wish I could say it was.
Sometimes the people who are making the decisions are not informed that $350 is nothing to get excited about when you may have to make 4 appearances.
Yes.
So
I just wanted to know if someone was at least presenting that information to those who are making those decisions.
Well, we're presenting, we're talking, and I'm being nice, but the program, it's a city program. It's a city program. So we're presenting, we're talking, we're trying to collaborate and work together the best we can.
This is not changing the underlying amount per case. It's simply saying, if I can go to court on 3 cases in one day, all right, that makes more economic sense. So that's all. I'm just trying to.
Yes. I hear exactly where you're coming from, Judge Thomas.
I'm just saying, that they need to be presented to those who are signing the contracts. That's all I'm saying. All right, thank you. As a judge, I don't get to chat and I don't get to raise my hand. So sometimes I'm not responding because I just haven't figured it out. But this is the best incentive I've had to learn. So I'm going to figure out how to put my hand down. But that is the end of my question. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And Linda McGee, we'll have you as the last question, because I know it's been a very engaging meeting, but I know this is Sunday, folks have other things to do. We've had a gracious speaker, Linda. So Linda, you're our final question.
Okay, thank you. I'll make it brief. First, I want to piggyback on what Judge Thomas said, and I think she just spoke what a lot of us were thinking. And I had the opportunity to appear on a couple of landlord tenant cases over the summer, and there are multiple adjournments. At least there were. Maybe they're not now that the moratorium is lifted, but those adjournments come after you actually have a hearing. So you're talking 2 or 3 hearings possibly for $350. And of course, we're doing it for the greater good as well, but we got to put food on the table too.
Yeah.
But the reason that I was asking the question, Tonya, and it's good to talk to you again, is well, the reason the question I have is there a provision or is there a conversation about pushing aging out foster children to the top of that list when it comes to place? It's almost like the expungements, you know, I know there's a wait list for everything. And is there any discussion, or is it within your realm of influence to mention that aging out foster children will be further behind everybody else if they don't get help with their evictions?
Thank you for that. No, you know, I've not heard any conversation about that. I can tell you in terms of advocating for a right to counsel ordinance, our Facebook page down there too, can follow along with updates there. I've heard advocacy for prioritizing subsidized clients with subsidized housing vouchers, women with young or households with young children, senior citizens, veterans. I've not heard aging out of foster care. So thank you for that. I will keep that with me and take that with me in rooms that I'm having a conversation and advocating for. So thank you for that and raising it in the meeting. I appreciate you. It's collective wisdom here. So I'm holding on to that one. Thank you.
Great. All right, Tonya, I want everybody, let's give her a round of applause for coming out and educating us. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And, do we have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved. I know we love it so much. We don't want to leave each other, but so
I know
moved.
we have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposition?
Bye.
None, no.
I think it's important. I know we're ending the meeting, but just is your organization doing any type of research or exploration in terms of, I know this has been an ongoing issue because I have several people calling me 24/7. Really, has your organization begin to tackle the actual reason pre-pandemic, post-pandemic as to why tenants are unable to afford their housing? Is it due to high rent? Is it due to disability? Is it due to basic lack of resources?
Lots of jobs.
We need to really address to not even get to court. You have to get
Yes, I'll be glad to share more of that. One little nugget here, we are working with the Stout firm, and they're a national firm. They've helped cities across the nation do studies to document the need for a right to counsel. And they have been retained to do and complete such a study for Detroit. And we're expecting that soon, hopefully within the next 30 days, but who knows, you know, things could need an extension, but certainly this year. And we're, diving into the research, documenting a lot of those trends, but just kind of from what we have researched and seen in court, it's complicated. It's very complicated. So rising rents are an issue in terms of affordable housing. It's huge. It's not just in Detroit, it's across the nation. But when people are evicted, there's also the question of where are they going to go? You know, the stock of habitable, affordable housing is low in Detroit. The unemployment rate, you know, that has been a factor. That's just been escalated with COVID and people's health and safety concerns. You know, so those are just some of the top reasons I would say. Some are just you know, bad actors. You know, I've seen a lot of interesting agreements, to say the least, where there's a concerted effort to they're predatory. It's a little predatory sub-industry in Detroit, I would say. And you take people for as much as you can get. And when you've got all you can get, you know, it's time to evict them and move on to the next. And that happens a lot as well. So there are a lot of reasons. But when that study comes, you know, I'll certainly share it and pass it on. So just stay tuned on that. And thank you for that question as well.
Motion on the table.
I think the motion carries. So everybody enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and look forward to seeing you at our October meeting. So everybody be blessed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great one.
Take care.
Bye.
You have
Love
a
you
great
all.
one. Take care.